In the 1940s and the 1950s, people were about God. They taught their children about God. They went to church. This was something the kids grew up on. It was amazing. And there were two parents in the household, in almost every household. Now, in the 1960s and the 1970s, Satan came into the world and showed people a different way of life, a worldly way of life. There was a sexual revolution. People did exactly what they wanted. They did what they wanted as freely as they wanted, with as many people as they wanted. And pretty soon, children were born out of wedlock. These children, this generation of children, didn't know who their father was, most of them. And then they would, all of a sudden, now these children have abandonment issues. They have trauma issues. They have a whole can of worms opened up that they should have never had to deal with. That generation produced another generation of single parent children, with children who did not know their father. Now there's more in this next generation who did not know their father, and so on. And this went on for years and years. And these children then ended up in prisons. They started hitting the street pharmaceuticals. They started going into a destiny that was not meant for them by God. All because of a sexual revolution of people doing whatever they wanted, and they were convinced by the devil, say what you want, the world, that they can do whatever they want without any consequences. Now, we are here in this generation, and we have more children being born. Now, here's what I'm going to suggest to you. It is our duty as parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents to teach these children about God. Because if we could teach these children about God, about worshiping God, about fearing God, about knowing who God is, the truth about God, the Bible, teach them God's ways, then the children after this generation, and the children after that generation, and the children after that generation will benefit from the teachings of this Bible. We would have less single parents in the future. We would have more two-parent families. We would have less street pharmaceutical issues. We would have less people in prison. And we would have basically happier, healthier kids and adults. And this is called a legacy. This is called an inheritance from the Lord. This is what we are called to do. This is why it's so important to teach our children about God. This is why it's so important to teach our children the morals of God, the ways of God, so that they don't fall victim to the world and cause other generations of children who are harmed from the world ways. Now, you have to know God yourself in order to teach your children. So wouldn't you want to know God so that you can teach your children? Wouldn't you want to get to know God so that you can teach your children, so that their children and their children and their children can be happier, healthier, two-parent homed people? History has showed us what the world had to offer. History has showed us what happened when the world got away from God. So if people were doing better when they were following God, wouldn't it make more sense to teach your children about God now? And if you don't know God, wouldn't you want to get to know God for yourself, first of all? But if you don't want to get to know Him for yourself, how about for your children? How about for your grandchildren? Do you not want to change generations to come so that they don't have it as hard as you did? And I'm not saying that single parents are bad. I'm not saying that at all. It wasn't fair to you to have to be a single parent. It was not fair to you to have to go through the hardships that you had to go through to raise your children. And it was not fair to you to have to go through the abandonment issues and all of that stuff. And when you want better for your children, when you want better for their children and their children, if you can make a difference, wouldn't you do it? Well, you can make a difference. And that's why the Bible teaches us to teach our children the inheritance of the Lord. And the inheritance of the Lord is to teach them His ways. Because His ways protects them from the world. His ways helps them become stronger, happier, more mature people, where they can overcome the world better. They walk in victory instead of survivor mode. Wouldn't you want that for your children? Wouldn't you want that for your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren? Now, I'm going to tell you, I was a byproduct of that 70s, 60s, and 70s movement. I had a broken home. I have a single parent. I lived in, I was raised by the village until my dad got out of Nam. I was a victim of that revolution. My children had both their parents as they were growing up. But we didn't know God. I didn't start knowing God till later in life. Had I known God earlier in life, I could have taught them from the beginning, and they wouldn't struggle with the things that they have struggled with. But I was trying to make sure that my children didn't go through the same things that I went through as a child. There are so many children who have been victims of broken homes because of a sexual revolution that happened in the 60s and 70s. I don't know about you, but I don't want my children and my grandchildren to suffer from that anymore. I want the generations to come to have better homes. I want them to have both a mother and a father in their homes. I want them both, or all of my children, to know who God is. And I want them to not know what street pharmaceuticals are. And I don't want them to have to go to prison for any reason. I want them to be able to conquer the world, not get defeated by the world. So I'm teaching my grandchildren. My children are teaching my children, my grandchildren. And we're going to teach and so on. Now, I hope you get on this move and teach your children. Teach yourself first so you can teach your children. But get on this Jesus move. Get on this Jesus revolution. And let's make a difference for the future. We've seen how the world did our past. Let's make a difference for our future generations. Hallelujah. They'll have a better time of being able to overcome this world, because the Bible teaches you how to overcome this world. And when people got away from it, we had a whole boat of problems that we should have never had. More mental illness, more life struggles. And we could keep our children and our grandchildren from having those life struggles if we get in on this Jesus revolution. So I'm asking you to join the Jesus revolution. Teach yourself and teach your children so generations to come will be impacted in a good way. God bless you.